We're live actually. Hey folks, so we just wanted to come to you with a quick video, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, or audio if you're listening on Spotify. An idea Ayshea was talking about, or a video she thought would be a really good idea. We had a quick chat about it and said, sure, look, why are we sitting here talking about it? Whether stick it on video form and audio form, so you can all have a listen to it. And the topic is coaching relationships, recreational athletes versus aspiring elite or pro athletes. I suppose that would be people like yourselves in your early days, or even currently elite and pro athletes, the differences between them and recreational athletes. So Ayshea, you wanted to chat about this? You wanted to lead the way there?
Yeah, I suppose it's something that I've been thinking, would have come up for a while. I know in the beginning, I think your approach was very much, you were very good at dealing with athletes who were very, very focused and were like, I want, the eye on the goal and sacrifice everything for that one goal. And I remember in the early days, I'd be kind of trying to say to you, not everyone has, has that mindset. And not everyone is going to put everything aside to prep and to, life gets in the way and people have families and everything else. So it can be really difficult.
And I was like, fuck them people.
Yeah. Matt's go-to and still can be, just do it. Right?
Just do it.
Just do it. And we've come to understand that's not Matt being a dickhead, right? That's just Matt's approach, right? But no, realistically, I think you've learned along the way that there is.
I've gotten older.
You've gotten older, yeah. You can appreciate the other aspects. You're not just in Matt's bubble where it's just the sport. There are other things outside of it. We talk about Matt's bubble a lot in other life. But no, there is a distinct difference, I think, and it needs to be acknowledged, because I think that sometimes it's very easy. I see it an awful lot now with new coaches, coaches that are coaching strongman and powerlifting and who have fuck all experience themselves. And again, try to keep this PG as we can. If there's little ears listening, there's going to be a few F-bombs probably dropped, especially when we get passionate about something we're talking about. But I think there's an understanding we have to have that there is a general level of respect and understanding as humans we have to have towards each other, right? But when it comes to you're actually coaching, and you have people, you're presented with people who this is the one thing that they want to get to the very top of their game, and they're willing to, shut out all of the other aspects, probably, or a lot of other aspects of their life in order to get there, versus people who think they want to do that, but really can't. And again, that's where I think, and those who are outwardly saying, no, I just do this for fun, and understanding there is a difference between that recreational side and that elite or professional or high level athlete. But for me, I suppose there's a point that comes where you'll be dealing with someone and they're going to be giving you all the excuses under the sun, and they're going to be saying, I can't do this and I can't do that, and this is wrong and that's wrong and I can't do this. I think that's when you have to sit down with that person and go, okay, what is it you actually want, and how much you willing to focus on getting what you want versus what you're not. And you will find that with I think personally that when you get somebody who's very, very serious, there will be the days where you will actually be able to say to them, you need to suck it up by the cup and get on with it. And it kind of brings us into the podcast bit that we were talking about earlier, about knowing when to suck it up and push on and drive on, and when with the people who you can actually go, well, it's not a case of suck it up. You have to have a different approach. And like I said, I've got athletes there who I know I need to. You'll sit down and you have a respectful conversation with them, and you're going to get feedback. And I think that's the biggest thing is communication. Is sitting down with your athlete and having you started doing it an awful lot now, Matt. I said with the feedback, so sitting down and asking, you do the questionnaires, you sit down and you do chats with the athletes and say, okay, what the goals for the year, and you do realize you're going to have to push really hard if you want this outcome.
Yeah, it's kind of if they'll give me their goals, and if it's not realistic, I will tell them it's not realistic. Whether it be this year or for the next 5 years or 10 years. I will say, what do you want short term in the next year? Then 3, 5, 10 years. Where do you envisage yourself? What you want to do? And they have to be realistic about it. If they're not realistic, you have to bring them back down to earth and be realistic to a certain degree. You want outlandish goals, but 64 kilo Mary can't tell me she wants to win World's Strongest Woman Open category.
No, exactly.
That's not realistic, But so some, it's a little bit like that. But then it's like, okay, you want to win such and such competition this year, but this is the effort it's going to take for you. You have to do all these things, and all these things have to be in line. Your nutrition, mobility, recovery, training, and that has to be. And if you really want this goal, this has to be in line. And if you can't do this, this isn't going to happen for you. But that's just being realistic with the elite level athletes. Now, again, there are other athletes that you mightn't be as harsh or stern with or straight with, and that's where you probably have more experience with that than I do at the moment.
Yeah. And,
to be honest.
And again, I think there is.
It's just who we're dealing with a little bit at the moment too. Like.
Yeah, I would be far more, I suppose, softly approach with recreational athletes than I would with my athletes who I know are capable of far more. And I think that's where we're talking about the difference. Is that there are times when I have my athletes where I'm going, you need to just buck up. Like if you want this, you got to work for it. You got to be, and you've really got to work for it. There's no point fucking coming to me and whinging about this, that, and the other. We've had this discussion. We've talked through it, and it's not about me just giving out to someone. Like before anyone gets upset, we've gone through all the stages, and at some point, it's personal responsibility. It's your accountability to yourself and to what you want to achieve. And I'm going to help you try and get there as much as I can. But with a recreational athlete who is going to possibly go, okay, well, I can't come to this training session because of whatever reason. You're going to be a little bit more lenient. You're obviously going to try and push them to be the best version of themselves, which is what we try and strive for.
Let's just define the recreational athlete just real quick so everyone knows what we're talking about. So to me, it's this person that loves doing strongman or powerlifting, whatever it is, has fun with it, and they're not going to be crying and upset if they do terribly in a competition. They love competing. It's fun.
It's community.
It's community. It's getting out and seeing people and chatting to people.
Yeah.
And it's essentially having fun.
Yeah,
they're not gonna.
It's more of a hobby than
a
lifestyle.
And if they come, if they get a bad position, they come second or just miss out in top three, they're not going to be crying.
Also,
there's nothing wrong with that. Like we've all cried.
Yeah.
I think and the recreational athlete to me as well is the person who will say, okay, so I have a social function at the weekend, and I'm going to go absolutely mouldy.
Yeah, I'm going to compete the weekend after.
And I'm going to compete the weekend after. Yeah.
Whereas if you tried to tell me that, and you're up to exactly the competition, I'd lose my fucking mind with you. And that's the God's honest truth about it. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, you're not going.
Yeah.
That's what I would say to you two. Like, and that's ridiculous thing to tell me.
Okay, so and again, I suppose another scenario would be that you're coming up to 2 weeks out from competition, and you decide to take off for 3 or 4 days on holidays because you've got a cheap thing.
Yeah.
That's, do you know what I mean? That's a recreational, because they're like, I don't care, I'm going to go and I'm still going to compete.
Yeah.
Obviously I'd be advising them not to do that because it's like, 2 weeks out from competition, and but you're giving them the advice, and they're a recreational athlete. I think that's where the difference has to be, is understanding that, and I think that's in any sport. And I know that there has always been issues around coaches and sometimes like managers, but you look at Alex Ferguson, probably one of the best managers of all time, and he was an asshole at times, but he had to be.
But you know what I read about him? I think it was in Roy Keane's book or somewhere. I can't remember where it was. It's years ago. Alex would eat the head off you tonight, and you'd be walking down the hallway past him in Old Trafford, and the lads would be like, or Carrington, where they train, and they'd be like, "Oh fuck, he's coming." But he'd just talk to them normally
because it was done.
It was done.
Yeah.
He'd chew them. He'd get it out of his system, and it was done. He'd be perfectly normal the next day. They'd be afraid of him at first, but then they'd realize, oh wait, he's actually okay now.
Yeah, just doing his job.
He's just doing his job.
It's not personal.
As a coach of elite athletes, sometimes you have to just fucking be harsh and stern and get it out there.
Yeah, and again, then I think there's the accountability of you as the athlete, and I honestly believe that if you were to, I'm of a different mindset anyway, but I'm trying to think of that if I knew that you were going to pussyfoot around me all the time, that I was having a bad day or having a moment or being moody, and that you were going to you stay away from me. You don't come over and pet me and give me a hug. Apart from the fact that we're in a relationship. But anyone, and that's always been the same throughout my sporting history. If any coach was to come and go, "Are you okay?" I would go, "Fuck off, leave me alone," because that's where my focus is. That's where my intensity is. If a coach was to come to me and go, "Right, bring me to one side the right way," and go, "Look, is there an issue?
Mm.
And I think that's where the professionalism comes in. Like, it's not all fucking hugs. And some people need that, and that's fine. But I don't think, to be really honest with you, I don't think you're going to get to your full potential if you're constantly being wrapped in cotton wool and being
kind of patronized almost.
Yeah.
And I think something back to what you said there about like athletes can sometimes be snappy themselves, and this is an aggressive sport sometimes as well. So your head does be in a different place. I think that the coaches have to understand not to get upset with the athletes when it happens. I've been victim of that way back as well. Like, me and you had massive rows, like, and before we even were in a relationship.
That was brilliant. I remember that one.
Cillein, I didn't realize Cillein was getting ready to lift sandbags last day, and as he was walking on the gym, I said, "I need you to do me a favor, go and pick up a sandbag who's fell to test it." And he was like, "In a minute." And Cillein was like, "Oh my God, he's so mad." I was like, "No, he's just focused.
He's in the zone.
He's just in the zone." I should have fucking realized what he was doing instead of open my fucking stupid mouth. And I was like, I said, just leave him be, and I'll catch him later on. It's a serious sport. It was about to try and stick 120 kilos on his shoulder 5 times or something of a sandbag, you know?
And I think that that we flip it back as well. And that as an athlete, if you, as a coach, I suppose, because we all coach, this is why I wanted to bring it up. We're all coaching people now, that you take that time to go, that you do notice, because I'll know that sometimes I'll see it in some of the lads and I'll be like, "Matt, you need to talk to that. There's something not right." It's understanding when there's a time and a place. There's empathy, I think it is. It's not being sympathetic. It's not being plarmos. It's not, for anyone who doesn't know what plarmos is, it's not mollycoddling, basically. There is a time and a place, I think, to have that understanding where somebody needs to talk, and you need to pull them on one side and have a chat with them and see what's going on.
We do.
There's a time when you need to be told, stop being a dickhead and do your thing.
Pull your finger out.
And it could also be like how you're interacting with other athletes as well. You know, if you've got a God complex, I know that one of the whole things in here is very funny. It's a running joke. Like, if I'm kind of setting up to go into a squat rack or a deadlift platform, and it's happened to me so many times, I wouldn't go over necessarily and say to that person, "Get out." More recently, I'm like, "Lads, could you just move?" If I'm halfway, but I wouldn't turn around and kick anyone off a piece of equipment because I've got a world's strongest woman type, masters, whatever. You know, but if somebody's doing that in your gym, if you started doing that, I'd be like, "Get out
the fuck out of here."
I don't care like what level of athlete you are. And that's one of the biggest things I think in this environment is that any of the lads who come in and train in the team, if they ever come in during offset session times,
which is the more recreational times,
which is the recreational lifters, they're fully aware that they will actually step back. I've seen that lads know that. Like with you guys, I'm like, if you're going to do logs, you fuck off out the back and do it. You're not doing it here. It's nice for the guys to see it who are recreational lifters at times, but they also understand now that this environment is not this elitist kind of attitude, and you will be brought down a peg if you do that. And I think then if you take umbrage to that, then this is not the right environment for you. Totally. And if you take umbrage to your coach, who is actually probably trying to bring the best out of you, and you've asked them, and you've come with realistic goals saying, Mary wants to win under 64 UKs, whatever, realistic for where she is at.
She showed this year, by the way, Mary.
But if she comes to you with that and you say, "This is what you need to do," and then she turns around halfway through and goes, "No, actually, no." But still expects the same results for half the effort.
That's kind of back to what the recreational lifter might
exactly.
do,
and again,
they don't have the right to be upset about not getting the result then. And that's something they need to understand. And I have nothing like, how do I put this? I'm not big into training recreational lifters. I don't do a lot of them. Most of you in here, you will do most of it in fairness over me. And you probably have more of them than I do as well. It's just not my thing. I like the harshness, the elite, or the people I want to do really well. But what I really do like seeing in competition is the recreational lifters. You can see they're actually just having fun.
So much fun.
And I think the elite lifters could take something away from that. And every now and again do a competition for fun, where you're not worried about the results. And just get back to enjoying the sport, because it's harsh. It's hard. When your whole life revolves around it too, it becomes kind of stressful. Which it shouldn't be too stressful, but I think it would be really good for the elite guys or the aspiring elites to take a little leaf out of the recreational lifters folks.
Have fun with it.
Have some fun, have some fun.
And I think understand as well, there's absolutely no reason why we need both. We need recreational lifters who do it for the love.
There's more of them.
There's way more of them.
And then we have the elite, and that's where the elite will come from, because there'll be those outliers who go, do you know what,
Absolutely.
I want to
Should
step
push
this
this,
up
like,
again. But yeah, I think it's just, I wanted to just kind of get it out there, I suppose, the coaching perspective, because I've seen it with more inexperienced coaches, I think, that literally are trying to make
elite lifters out of recreational.
lifters, and you have to know the difference. That isn't.
Yeah,
it's not always going to happen.
No.
Yeah, and like you can still be a recreational lifter and still like take your progression seriously.
absolutely.
But like, let's say you may just like have another career, like you could be like a lawyer, or whatever. Then that's your main
That's
thing.
your most important.
That's your income. That's kind of your family and everything like. But then like you can still take a very professional approach to the sport, even though you're only a recreational lifter.
And like you could say, I'm training 3 days a week for an hour and a half, and I'm just going to get the best out of myself. And then that's 4.5 hours a week essentially. Like, and that that there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, you get a lot of people that are like that.
A lot of people like that. Yeah, and like you said, like as coaches, just has to be treated differently.
Totally.
Like I don't deal with too many of them right now.
Yeah.
But if I was, like, it would be totally different how I deal with you two.
Yeah.
Or anyone that trains on the team with us here, like closely.
One thing I say is just, and you can disagree with me if you think, but like even if you've got like recreational lifters and then you've got like top level lifters, you still need to give constructive criticism to both.
Absolutely.
Like like if you've got like just a recreational lifter and their form is bad or not doing things wrong, you still even though they're not doing it for like the end goal, like you still, even for their own safety and for their own kind of progression, because like that person is giving you money, and if you're just like, they're sending you videos and their form is bad, and then next thing your coach is just like, if your coach has never given you any constructive criticism, then your coach doesn't care about your overall product. Realistically, like
perfect.
But that just that doesn't.
If your coach is high five saying that you are absolutely awesome, then there's something wrong.
You're just money. You're just money to them.
Like, and if that's the environment that you think you're going to thrive in, it really isn't, because you're living in a bubble, and like you are never going to get any way better if somebody's just constantly telling you you're fantastic and giving you a high five for doing shine.
I think you're right though. You do have to still give them constructive criticism. I think the biggest difference comes in how, again, the mental approach is like, sometimes we don't just say get the fuck on with it.
How you say it.
And maybe how we design our programs and how harsh the training isn't quite as hard as on the recreational lifter.
Totally.
They mightn't end up training for 3.5 hours on a Saturday like you do sometimes and you do sometimes.
Yeah.
It might be a good bit scaled back.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the recoverability because they're focused on other things.
You can scale it back, but it still has to be done right.
It still has to be done right, and it still has to be progressive.
Yeah.
And it still has to be hard.
Yeah, of course.
Just maybe not crushing the way yours is sometimes, or yours is sometimes, or some of the other people. There's just a different level to how hard it would be. You can't do the exact same program as you. The recreational lifter just can't. Because they're probably not putting the time into their nutrition, or their sleep, or their over recovery modalities.
So like, there shouldn't be like, coach shouldn't be somebody who's like being negative, saying you have to do these things. And at the same time, they shouldn't be those people that saying you're great at everything. Like you need to find a coach that, if you've got a coach that's doing one of those things, well then like you don't have a good coach.
And I think that's the other side of it, is those coaches, and we've said about it, who literally, whether you're an elite athlete or not, who are just basically telling you to get the fuck on with it, just do it, don't question this, don't question that. But they're not giving you any other and any other like helpful feedback. Then I would be very, very much questioning. And again, sometimes people get sucked into that whole syndrome, whether you're recreational or elite. Oh wow, this person has such a great social. We've talked about this before as well, but how they have such a great social media standing, or they've been referred by friends of friends of friends. But
what have they produced?
What have they produced, and what's the longevity of the people they have produced?
Totally.
That's a big thing.
If those people have just flash in the pans, like they've come and gone, and those people have moved on, or they've just disappeared.
It's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. But if you see that there are people who have stuck with those coaches and stuck with that environment, regardless of what shite people talk, because people will always gossip and talk shite about people. Look at the real facts that are in front of you and find out if that coach is
long-lasting progress. Athletes who aren't broke up all the time. And they stick in with the coach. People are in and out and they're transient. You're probably not a good coach.
No.
And you probably need to, if you're listening to this and you're a coach, probably have some self-reflection there for yourself.
And I think that's the biggest thing here. It's not about the athletes here. It's more about, it is about the athletes, but it's also about the coaches. Like, you're out there calling yourself a fucking coach. Are you really? or are you just regurgitating the program and throwing it out there, calling yourself a coach, but
Yeah.
you're not actually holistically looking at your athlete, whether they're recreational or whether they're elite? Are they mentally, not mentally, but are they emotionally capable of taking on that role? Are you forcing them in just because they present as being strong or having a bit of a flair? Does that make them an elite athlete? Does that mean you treat them like an elite athlete?
Yeah.
You know, so
Definitely
I do
not.
think coach reflections for coaches there is massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
Totally.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps that up. I think
Yeah.
we went over time. We were only
Yeah,
15 minutes.
15.
We're at 20, but
Yeah.
I think again, it's a topic we're probably all passionate about as
Yeah.
well, and we think is really important. So we will tend to go over on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Hope, hope people can listen to it and enjoy it. And we didn't just give out too much.
Wouldn't be like this, huh?
See you later, folks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.